Super. My Maneki Mneko says, hello and Happy New Year. Greetings to everyone to the East Asian Studies Festival, to our celebration of the Lunar New Year. The East Asian Studies program at Wittenberg is a venerable program indeed, 50 years old. And we are so proud to have the East Asian Studies Festival, which for many years now has brought together the campus, the community, and all of us in East Asian Studies to enjoy and learn about and celebrate East Asian cultures. Most years we also enjoy eating a lot. This year I'll leave that to you after our event. This is a very special year for me, the Metal Ox year. Many of you may know that our astrological signs for the Lunar New Year are on a 12-year cycle, and that 12-year cycle is on a larger 60-year cycle. When you complete 5 of your special years, which for me is an ox, you have a very special birthday, and this year is my 60th birthday. So returning to the year of the Metal Ox is for me a special moment. So I invite you to enjoy my special birthday with me. But really, it's an even more special year because of this celebration which we are offering in the midst of not only cold and winter and snow, but also of a singular, difficult year. I am so very grateful to my East Asian Studies colleagues who have, as usual, worked very hard to put together a wonderful event. I'm even more proud of you, our students, who have stepped up in such a strange and challenging year to continue this tradition. And so to one and all, Happy New Year. And may family, friends, fortune, and good health be yours in the year of the Metal Ox. Thank you.
That was Dr. Jennifer Oldstone Moore, a little introduction on the Lunar New Year. And now we have Dr. Shelley Chan, and she's going to explain a little bit of what the Chinese do and what they eat.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to attend our annual East Asian Lunar New Year festival. Although this is a very cold day, and also, during the pandemic, but I'm very happy to see, there are so many performances today. Chinese New Year, we also called it the Spring Festival, 春节, and this year, like Dr. Ostermoore said, is the year of the ox. For my brief presentation on each of the pages, you can see a very cute ox. Next, please. Okay, first of all, we greet people. Well, we say 新年快乐. We also say 新年好. That means Happy New Year. And also, some students from the Chinese classes that already got the 红包, right? The red color envelopes. Color red is a very lucky, good color in our culture. So we put money in the envelope to give it to younger generations, children, to wish them good luck. And then a more traditional way to greet people, we can also say 恭喜发财, wish you joy and prosperity. And some naughty children will say 红包拿来. You ask the adults to give them 红包, give me a red envelope. Next, please. Okay, celebration of the New Year is also the celebration of lives. We say the first day of Chinese New Year, we call it the chicken's birthday. The second day, the dog's birthday. The third day, goat's birthday. And the fourth day, pig's birthday. The fifth day, cow's birthday. And the sixth day, horse's birthday. And the seventh day, it will be human's birthday. On that day, you can say happy birthday, 生日快乐 to every person you meet or you talk to. Next, please. Okay, when we talked about celebration, we always talked about food, right? You know, the food culture in China is so developed, so we eat in every single occasion. And for the New Year, we actually celebrate 15 years. So within these 15 years, we eat and eat and eat a lot. Excuse me. Actually, we have so much food, and here I just mentioned a few more common food to you. You know, the first one is dumpling, 饺子. I know this is Maddie's favorite and Kim's favorite too, right? Kimmy's favorite. Well, 饺子actually, northern people eat more 饺子 than southern people, but still, you know, it's a symbol of like happiness. And, you know, the family will make 饺子 together on the New Year's Eve and cook them and eat them together. So it's a symbol of of family reunion. And fish, 鱼. Is a homophone of another character 鱼, meaning more than enough, plenty. So you eat fish, then you have more than enough to eat, more than enough to spend in the year, in the following year. Okay, and also we eat rice cake, 年糕. 年 means year. So in a minute, my students will tell a story about 年, and cake, we call it 糕, but actually this is another homophone for like tall or high. So you eat 年糕, New Year's cake, and you know, children will grow taller and stronger, and adults will have good development in their like career, get promotion higher and higher. Okay, and of course we eat candies. Then you eat something sweet that you will have like sweetness for the whole year. Next, please. Okay, last but not least, the 15th day, we called it almost the official ending of the celebration. And then we eat another kind of dumpling, the sweet rice dumplings. We can call it 元宵, or we can call it 汤圆. It depends on where you're from. You know, northern China, people from northern China usually call them 元宵, and people from the south, usually we call it 汤圆. Okay, and this we also call it the Lantern Festival, 元宵节. And we say that it's Chinese Valentine's Day. You know what? In the ancient time, girls were not allowed to go out freely, but on this day, and girls and boys, they both went out to enjoy the lantern, a lot of beautiful lanterns. And then actually, girls and boys, they took advantage of this day to see each other, to talk to each other. So that's why we called it the Chinese Valentine's Day. Okay, this is my very brief introduction of Chinese New Year, and then I will give the time to Shay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chan, and thank you again, Dr. Oldstone Moore, for starting us off. Next, we have our first class, Chinese 112. Our first performance was going to be from Molly King, who had a video of, with her dancing. Unfortunately, the file was too big, so we're going to move on to the next performance by Austin, who's going to sing a song, Those Flowers of Mine.
Hi. So before the video starts, I'm Austin. To give a brief overview of what the song is about, it is called Those Flowers of Mine, and it's by Pushu. The song is just encapsulating the singer's expression of his past gone by with people he knew, mostly of people he liked back in his days, and he's just kind of reflecting on where they are right now, what what are they doing right now, and kind of just thinking back to that previous life that he had. So I hope you guys enjoy.
You forgot to allow the sound.
Thank you. Can you guys hear it?
No, still not.
Okay, give me one moment. Sorry about that.
I will be singing Those Flowers by Pooh.
All right, can you hear it now?
I hope
you Yes.
enjoy.
Okay, I'll start it over for you guys.
Xinnian Kuaile, or Happy New Year. I am Austin, and today, for you, I will be singing Those Flowers by Pooh. I hope you enjoy.那片笑声让我想起我的那些花，在我生命每个角落，静静为我开着。我曾以为我会永远守在她身旁，今天我们已经离去。在人海茫茫，他们都老了吧？他们在哪里呀？我们就这样各自奔天涯。啦啦啦啦啦啦啦啦啦啦，想他。啦啦啦啦啦啦啦，它还在开吗？啦啦啦啦啦啦啦啦啦啦啦，这样，它们已经被风吹走，散落在天涯。有些故事还没讲完，那就算了吧。那些心情在岁月中已经难辨真假，如今经历黄色从前没有了鲜花。好在曾经拥有你们的春秋和冬夏，他们在哪呢吧？他们在哪里呀？我们就这样各自奔天涯。啦啦啦啦啦啦啦啦。啦啦啦，想他。啦啦啦啦啦啦啦，它还在开吗？啦啦啦啦啦啦啦啦啦啦，夕阳，它们已经被风吹走，散落在天涯。啦啦啦啦啦啦啦啦啦啦，想他。啦啦啦啦啦啦啦，他还在开吗？啦啦啦啦啦啦啦啦啦，他们已经
北风吹走，散落在天涯。他们在哪了吧？他们在哪里呀？我们就这样各自奔天涯。I hope you enjoyed. And once more, 新年快乐. And once again, Happy New Year.
That was amazing. Very calming. I love the sound. All right, next in the Chinese 112 class, we have a poem called Goose, and it will be read by Zachary Parkman.
Hello everyone. This poem is called The Goose, also known as Young. So I don't know if you have it, but can you want to pull up the English translation for everyone to as well to read afterwards, or forget. All right. So the poem Young is by Liu Binghuang. 居省
Is introducing. So just say like, after the thing, just say 新年快乐, and be like, Happy New Year.
居省先天个白毛肤流水好长波金波. All right, that was the poem, and all right. So, yep.
Thank you, Zach. Our next presentation will be by Hannah and Lily, and they'll be presenting the story of Nian.
Can you guys turn on your camera? How come it's always my picture?
All right, can you guys see?
Mhm.
All right. So this is the story of Nian, and it's presented by Hannah Marson and Lily Peterson. Long ago, there was a quiet village that rested at the base of a mountain. Though the villagers lived simple, peaceful lives, each year the village was terrorized by a ferocious beast.
In the mountain above the village, a monster called Nian slept until the Lunar New Year arrived. When it arrived, Nian would wake and descend into the village in search of food.
The ravenous monster would eat crops, munch on livestock, and even snack on humans. In fear, the villagers would hide in their houses until Nian passed.
One year, as the fateful day approached, an old beggar entered the village. The man traveled door to door asking if anyone was willing to shelter him for the night. Too concerned with their own safety, the villagers paid no attention to the old man.
Eventually, an old woman from the east side of the village noticed the old man. She gave the man some food and explained why everyone was in such a panic. Despite this warning, the old man did not flee.
Instead, he requested that if she offered to house him, he would reward her by banishing the evil creature. Although the woman continued to plead with the old man, she eventually accepted his proposal out of fear of Nian.
At night, Nian descended into the village. Usually, the village was completely silent and dark. However, this year, Nian noticed lights at one end of the village. Warily, Nian stalked closer to the home.
As it approached the house, it noticed the house was covered in red paper and bright light was coming from inside. Fearful and enraged, Nian growled at the unusual and irritating things. Suddenly, Nian charges the door, only for the door to open and a barrage of loud imitating pops and flashes to halt Nian in its tracks.
Emerging from the doorway, an old man dressed in a bright red gown and beating a large red drum. Overwhelmed by fear, Nian turns and flees the village. The next morning, the villagers realize the village was untouched by Nian's destruction. Quickly, the old woman leads the villagers to her house and explains what the old man did to protect the village.
Afterwards, no one feared Nian anymore. Red decorations, red clothes, and firecrackers soon became a tradition during Lunar New Year. Now, Lunar New Year is a cause for celebration.
The end.
The end.
新年快乐! Happy New Year!
Wow, your guys' animation was so good. Thank goodness that they put up all those decorations. Next, I'm going to hand it over to Holly.
Hello. So next we have our Japanese 112 class presentations. First up, we have Morgan Larson presenting the song.
Happy New Year! All right, I'm gonna start here. Can you see it? Actually, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you and we can see it.
Okay, good. All right.「知らない」という言葉の意味間違えていたんだ。知らない人のこといつの間にか嫌いと言っていたよ。何も知らずに知ろうともしなかった人のことどうして嫌いなんて言ったのだろう流されていたんだ知らないことは怖いから言いにくい言葉ばかり吐き出してごまかして自分のことまで嫌わないで一人ぼっちになりたくないここにいてよその言葉言えなくて心閉ざさないで一人ぼっちにさせないから大丈夫だよその言葉返せるように強くなりたい人生のことあまりにも問題ばかり起きるから難問解決プログラムなのかと思っていたけれど気づいたんだプレゼントみたいなものなんだって 何十年か好きに生きていい特別なプレゼントだから楽しみにしながらゆっくり開けたらいいんだ自分自身にその言葉を送るよいつも忘れちゃうから一人ぼっちになりたくないここにいてよその言葉言えなくて心閉ざさないで一人ぼっちにさせないから大丈夫だよその言葉返せるように強くなりたい今君のいる世界が辛くて泣きそうでもそれさえもプレゼントだったと笑える日が必ず来る一人ぼっちになって気づいた本当は大切な人がたくさんいるんだってことが一人ぼっちにさせないから大丈夫だよその言葉返せるように強くなりたい
Wow, that was amazing. Thank you so much, Morgan.
あり
Next
がとう
up,
ございます
next up we have Ryan Hensley giving us a story named Bunbuku Chagama.
All right, hello everybody. I hope you're enjoying the festival. I certainly am. That was fantastic. Having a good time. So I'm going to be telling you the story of Bunbuku Chagama. Long, long ago, there was a temple named Moranji at Tatabayashi. One day, a man was walking in the woods and he found a raccoon in a trap. He felt sorry, so he set him free. The other day, passing the same way, he found an old tea kettle in the woods. And since he thought it was a pity to waste it, he picked it up, cleaned it, and then realized that the tea it made was the best he had ever had. He thought the priest at the local temple was looking for a nice tea kettle. I think it will be good for him. If you go to the next slide, please. Thank you. The next day at the temple, it was extremely busy with the regular tea service that they were doing. However, as the priest poured the hot water, he realized that there wasn't enough water in the tea kettle, despite the fact that he had filled it himself previously. Later that night at midnight, a noise woke the priest up, and when he came out, he saw a raccoon taking the shape of a tea kettle. If you could go to the next slide. He saw a raccoon in the tea kettle, and he was terrified. The priest ran around and went to go call all of the other priests, but they came back to the room and it was just an ordinary tea kettle. If you go to the next slide, please. So all of the other priests thought he was definitely faking it. You know, you're just dreaming it, drank too much tea, had too much fun last night. But he was sure that he had seen that raccoon. The next morning, the priest called over the man who had given him the tea kettle and described the experience from the night before, and said that he wanted to destroy it, thinking that it was cursed. And suddenly, the raccoon dog stuck his head and limbs from out of the tea kettle, shocking both of them. The raccoon was very sad and just said, you know, I really wanted to repay the man's kindness, but it was hard for me to continue tucking my limbs, and I just was out for a stretch last night. Unfortunately, you came into the room just as I untucked. Suddenly, the priest laughed out loud and was very happy. "Splendid! Everyone loved the tea, and it's thanks to you." The priest then said, "You shouldn't be afraid. The people of the village will love you, and I want to show them this raccoon tea kettle." The raccoon was glad to hear, and he made a promise to show the people his performance. The young priest informed all over the village, yelling, "We will hold an amazing performance at the temple. Everyone come see. The raccoon's rope walking, dancing, tumbling. Everybody come see, come see." If you go to the next slide, please. People from all over came to see the raccoon and his routine. And it was doing everything that the priest said. He was rope walking and dancing and tumbling, and everybody was surprised and was applauded very, very loudly. And he became very popular, and many people from around the different villages would come to see his performance. The priests used the money from the temple that they made from the entrance fee and donations to construct a bridge over the river. If you go to the next slide. To construct a bridge over the river in the town. So he named this raccoon Bunbuku Chagama, which means happiness bubbling over like a teapot. Now Bunbuku Chagama is sleeping at the temple Morangi. It is said that he sometimes stretches his limbs from the tea kettle and walks around the temple at night. And if you listen closely enough, you can hear the pitter-patter of his little steps as he practices his routine. And go to the next slide. And thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Ryan. That was awesome. Next up, we have a origami tutorial by Nicholas Lancaster. So if you guys have some paper with you and would like to follow along, get it ready.
Hello, everybody. I cannot personally tell if I'm full screened or not. Just let me know.
You are.
All right, perfect. All right, so today I'm going to teach everybody how to fold a paper crane. I have origami paper myself, and if this were in person, I would have brought some for everyone who wanted to try it out. But due to unfortunate circumstances, we can't do that. So to start, you're going to need a square piece of paper. So take any old piece of paper that you have, maybe like a test that you didn't do so good on that you want to do something productive with. And then you just take one of the corners and you fold it over so that each line matches. You get a nice triangle like this. And then you're going to take this here, hit the crease, fold it over so it matches as such. And what I like to do is like to take my thumbnail to get a nice firm crease like that. And you're going to fold that over a couple more times just to loosen it up. Then I personally like to make a little tear there. And if you just put pressure and then kind of pull backward just a little bit. Worse on my desk is kind of sticky, so that's not going to work. So let's try a little bit larger. Tear there. There we go. And then you should have a nice square piece of paper and one of your folds that you're going to need to do already finished. Now, I'm going to use the nicer paper for this. So what you're going to do once you have the square paper is fold it once over. So we're going to get to that one crease that we already have. Go. Fold it again, back over the opposite way. So then you should have the crease that divides each corner. As such. After that, you're going to fold it over kind of hamburger style. Push this down, crease that, unfold it, and then do it again. on the other way. You're going to unfold it. You're going to flip it over. Then you're going to grab at one of the folds that you'd folded hamburger style. You should be able to kind of pop it so you get this nice diamond-esque shape. And then you're going to, from there, just kind of grab two of them like this. Trying to see if I can get that better in the camera. Kind of like that. You're just going to push it down as such. And that should give you a square. Kind of like a nice diamond. Now, if it looks kind of wonky and is a little bit imperfect, that's totally fine. It's just it just happens like that sometimes. And stuff like that gets better the more you do it. So then what you're going to do is you're going to take one of the corners and fold it towards the middle, where there should be a crease already. Just going to line it up with that. Fold it over, and then do it with the opposite end as well. So you should have a nice kite shape. Then it should look something like this. Then you're going to take the top part, fold it over, and then unfold it. Then unfold your two folds here as well. Then what you're going to want to do is pull out this little sheet here and just kind of flip it inside out. And that should give you a nice diamond shape. Like that. Then you can do it again on the opposite side. Fold one over towards the middle. You're going to crease it. Do it with the opposite side. Take the top. Fold it in. Unfold it all. And then pull it inside out. This doesn't work with me very well. There we go. Nice crease. Then you should have a nice diamond shape like this. All right. Then you're going to have these two little bits here that kind of look like legs. Well, they're not actually the legs. This is going to be the head and the tail. So you're going to fold it over like such, so that one of the edges kind of matches up the other like that. I'm going to do it on the other side as well. Fold it over. So it should look something like this. Fold it back down. And you're going to kind of pop it into place like such. Pull this out. Popping this out, and there you go. Now what I like to do is whichever side turned out the best, take it, fold it downwards to make the head, fold it back up, and pop it into place. And it should hold like that. Then for the wings, you just fold it down, fold this part down as well. There you go. You should have paper crane. If you practice a lot, you can even make them this small. That's all I have for you. Hopefully you were able to follow that along. Hopefully I didn't go too fast. If you have any questions, just let me know.
Thank you so much, Nicholas. I hope everybody's cranes turned out well. I know I have a long way to go before I can make them that tiny. But next up, we have Audra Flory, and she is going to be telling us a story about Kuchisake Onna, the split-mouth woman.
Should I start? During the Japanese Heian period, around 1,000 years ago, a samurai was married to a beautiful woman. She was the center of everyone's affection, and she knew that. She would walk around town asking those who stared, "Am I pretty?" This angered the samurai, and when he discovered that she was being unfaithful, he wanted revenge. One day, he attacked her with a knife. He pressed the blade into her cheek and slit her mouth ear to ear, leaving her with a bloody, twisted grin. Who will think you're pretty now? Soon after her death, she returned as a vengeful spirit named Kuchisake Onna, the slit-mouth woman. In the late 1970s, a countrywide panic broke out after numerous people claimed to have encountered Kuchisake Onna. More police officers were assigned to night duty, and students were required to walk home in pairs after school. People took extra precautions to avoid her, knowing that an encounter would be fatal. A man named Tanaka was supposedly the last to encounter Kuchisake Onna on his way home from work. Tanaka had taken a shortcut through an alleyway when a woman with long, silky black hair stepped out in front of him. She was wearing a long trench coat and a surgical mask. Tanaka stood in silence. She asked, "Am I pretty?" To which he swiftly responded, "Yes, very." The woman peeled back her mask, revealing her disfigured mouth and exposed teeth. Next slide. Tanaka's eyes widened. "Am I pretty?" she asked again. Tanaka was frozen, unable to move or utter a single word. Displeased, the slit-mouthed woman unsheathed a pair of scissors and slashed him once across the face and a second time across the jugular. As she stood over him and laughed, Tanaka looked her in the eyes and said with his last breath, "The prettiest woman I've ever seen." The end.
Thank you so much, Audra. That was awesome. All right. So once again, thank you for everybody from the Japanese 112 class for your presentations and your songs. Next, I will be passing it back over to Shay for the Chinese again.
Thank you. That story was, I was very scared. Thank you for reading it for us. Our next class is Chinese 212, and Leah, Taylor, and Maddie, our great, amazing producer, will be reading us the story of the lunar calendar.
Hello, and 新年快乐. So we will be, like everyone said, telling the story of the Chinese zodiac animals. Next slide. Long, long ago, there was no Chinese zodiac. The Jade Emperor wanted to select 12 animals to be his guards. So, he sent an immortal being into the man's world to spread the message that the earlier one went through the heavenly gate, the better the rank one would have.
So the Shu. Rat got up very early for the race, and on his way to the gate, he encountered a river. Rat could not swim well. After waiting a long time, Rat noticed Ox was about to cross the river and jumped onto the ox.
The ox, or the diligent ox, did not mind at all and continued. After crossing the river, he raced towards the palace. Suddenly, Rat jumped off the ox and dashed to the feet of the emperor. Rat won first place and Ox was second. Ox is Nü in Chinese.
Then we have the tiger, which is Hu. Tiger and rabbit came third and fourth. Both are fast and competitive, but tiger was faster.
2, or rabbit, got across the river by hopping on stepping stones and a floating log.
Long, or dragon, was fifth. This was immediately noticed by the Jade Emperor, who said Dragon's son could be 6, but Dragon's son didn't come with him that day.
The Shi, or snake, the snake came forward and said Dragon was his adoptive father, so the snake ranked 6.
Then Ma, horse and goat were next. They were very kind and modest, each insisting the other to go first.
Goat, or Yang, the emperor saw how polite they were and ranked the horse and goat 7th and 8th.
Then Ho, monkey had fallen well behind, but he jumped between trees and stones and caught up to be the 9th.
The rooster, or Di, was last, or were 10th. I want to see the cat slides. Leah, do you want to talk about the cat?
Where is the dog?
I think I didn't get all the slides transferred over correctly.
Okay.
I must have missed them.
The dog and the pig. It's fine. I love all the animals.
Give me 1 second and I can pull it up. The dog, or Go, came in 11th.
Oh, I'm sorry. And the pig came in 12th.
So you might be wondering what happened to the cat. So the story of the cat goes, although cat and rat were neighbors, the former always bullied the latter. Therefore, the rat sought revenge. So the morning of the event, the rat left quietly without waking up the cat, even though he agreed to. So the cat didn't wake up until the race was over and thus never made it into the cycle.
Yay, 新年快乐!
Thank you so much for teaching us about the zodiac animals. I had no idea there was a story that a cat was even a possibility that it would end up in the cycle. All right, our next presenter is Trinity, and she will be doing a traditional Chinese dance called Jasmine.
Can you guys see it?
Yes. Trinity, that was absolutely beautiful. I loved your outfit, and the dance was just amazing. All right, I'm going to hand it back to Holly, and she's going to introduce the last class before our brief intermission.
All right, thank you so much to the Chinese 212 class. Next up, we have a series of haiku and tanka performed by the Japanese 212 class. First up, we have Jason Aguilar.
Hello, everyone. So I will be explaining tanka poems as well as give a few examples of them. So next slide. Thank you. So tanka poems were a form of Japanese poetry which started around 1,200 years ago, so around the 7th or 6th century. And most tanka poems consist of similes, metaphors, and personification. So most of the time when people did write tanka poems, they were meant to be a symbol of either a state that they're in or things around them. So that's why most subjects of tanka poems were the focus of nature, season, love, sadness, and other strong emotions. And in fact, tanka poems are linked to the New Year's in the sense that every year the Imperial Palace does host tanka competitions. Last year, 2020, the topic that they chose was hope. So it's a bit ironic that they chose that, and then 2020 didn't come out great. And during the initial, I think, Nara period and Heian period, tanka poems were used as courtship. So when you want to date someone, you'd write a tanka poem, and then after maybe you've had a nice evening with them, then you would write a tanka poem expressing your love. So next slide, please. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. Oh, you skipped one. Yeah, okay. Formatting of tanka poems. Tanka poem consists of 5 lines of poetry that are based off a syllable count. So it goes 5, 7, 5, 7, 7. So the first 3 lines are considered the upper phrase, and then the last 2 lines are considered the lower phrase. And when these poems, since they're written in Japanese and they're translated to English or other languages, they sometimes are not matching the syllable count, but you can go to the next slide. So this tanka poem was written by Motori Norinaga. He was a scholar and in fact a doctor, and he was revitalizing the ancient writings and traditions of Japanese literature. So he wrote this tanka poem to describe the spirit of Japanese people. Shikishima no Yamata Gokoro Hito Towaba Asahi ni Nio Yamazakura Hana. If someone wonders how to describe the spirit of the Japanese, say a mountain cherry blossom growing in the morning sun. So next slide, please. So this next tanka poem was written in 700 AD. Akihito Yamebe was an apprentice to a famous poet called Kakino Moto, which he was so renowned for his poetry, he was then deified as the god of poetry. So this poem is meant to be described when he was looking at Mount Fuji and when he was with his protege. Tago no ure ni Uchi dete mireba, Shirotae no Fuji no takane ni yuki wa furitsutsu. So I started off along the shore, the seashore at Tago, and saw the white and glistening peak of Fuji all glow through falling flakes of snow. So, Happy New Year!
Thank you so much, Jason. Next up, we have Joseph Jenkins.
Can everybody hear me? Konnichiwa. I'll be talking about one of the Waka poets, Ono no Komachi. She was born in Akita Prefecture when it was still known as Dewa, in what is now Yuzawa City, around 834 AD. She was regarded as one of the most beautiful, not only on the outside but also on the inside, for what her works would do to the people. While she was known for her skills at the koto, calligraphy, singing, and dancing, it was her poetry that brought her the most attention. Her poetry is full of longing, heartache, and emotional intensity, and the Waka style that people were using at the time to fit her perfectly. She left court and returned to Yuzawa when she was in her mid-30s, and no one really knows what happened from there, but it's estimated that she died in the year 900. Next slide, please. Most of her poems don't have titles, they're just excerpts from a book that they collected. So here's the first one. Hana no iro wa utsuri ni keri na itazura ni wagami yo nihu nagame seshima ni. The color of this flower has already faded away. By idle thoughts, my life goes by as I watch the long rains. And here's the second one. Kagai naki, emoe no mama ni, yoro mo komu, imeji o sae ni, hito wa togameji. Without end, do I think of you, and so come to me at night, for on the path of dreams at least, there's no one to disapprove. Ouaimasu. Ganbatte kudasai.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Next up, we have Stephen Johnson.
Konnichiwa. So I'll be reading some poetry by Matsuo Basho, who is a very famous poet. You can go to the next slide. So some background to haiku. Haiku were originally referred to as hokku, which is effectively the upper phrase of tanka poems, but only that. So instead of 57577, it's just 575 with some exceptions from time to time. Haiku began to pick up popularity after the various hokku written by Matsuo Basho. And we're going to go ahead and read some of the poems that Basho wrote. This is The Old Pond. Furui ke ya, kawazu tobikomu, mizu no oto. Nearby an old pond, a frog jumps in the water. The sound of water. This is The Quiet Night, also known as Autumn Moonlight. Yoru hisoka ni, mushi wa gekka no kuri o gatsu. In the quiet night, a worm under the moonlight in the chestnut bores. This is Winter Garden. Fuyu ni wa ya, tsuki mo ito naru, mushi no gin. O winter garden, the moon is thin as thread, the bugs are singing. So Matsuo Basho lived from 1644 to 1694. He's known as being one of the founders of the Hokku style of poetry. He's a very famous poet in Japan, and arguably amongst anybody who writes haiku is very well known. Matsuo's family line was originally from a samurai family. His pen name was Solbo, and he became increasingly famous during the late 17th century. So Basho traveled throughout Japan, and he would leave haiku poems written in cities that he had traveled to. Some of these cities were ones such as, or they were about ones such as Yamadera, Nikko, Hiraizumi, Chusonji, and a few other locations scattered about Japan. He was very, very highly praised up until the late 19th century when he started to receive some criticisms, and there were new authors that were developing new styles. But even while he was criticized by people such as Masaoka Shiki, he still stayed very famous and is still well known as a founding father of haiku in Japan. That's all I have. So thank you. Shinyan Kwaila and Gambatte Kudasai.
Thank you, Stephen. Next up, we have Jacob Major.
Yes. I'll be reading some haikus that are a hypothetical situation of a Zen master asking the three great warlords of the Sengoku Warring States period how they would deal with a cuckoo bird that would not sing for them. The three warlords are Oda Nobunaga, who was known for his fierceness and his cruelty, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, who was known for his cunning, and Tokugawa Ieyasu, the most diplomatic and patient of the three. The first response is Nobunaga's, Naka nunara koroshite shimae hototo isu. If a bird doesn't sing, kill it. The cuckoo bird. The next is Toyotomi Hideyoshi, Naka nunara naka shite mise o hototo isu. If a bird doesn't sing, make it. The cuckoo bird. He would use his cunning to make it. And the last is Tokugawa Ieyasu, Naka nunara nakumade mato hototo isu. If a bird doesn't sing, wait for it. The cuckoo bird. He would wait for it because of his patience and his diplomacy. And that is all I have for you guys today. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Jacob. Last up, we have Daisha Sally. Daisha, can you try saying something? We're not sure we can hear you.
Maybe we can take our intermission and see if we could get Deja's mic to work.
Sounds good. All right, let's take a 10-minute intermission and we will all be back at 4:15. All right, welcome back, everybody. We are ready to go back to Daisha Sally's presentation of tanka and haiku.
Okay, good.
Okay, we ready?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm presenting on Yosano Akiko. Next slide, please. Yosano Akiko was a tanka poet. She was born on December 7th, 1878, and she died March 29th, 1942. Yosano Akiko was her pen name, but her birth name was Yosano Sho. She was a pioneering feminist and social reformer active in the late Meiji period, as well as the Taisho and early Showa periods of Japan. She was one of the most noteworthy and controversial post-classical women poets. A lot of her poetry is geared towards the elevation of femininity and the praising of femininity as well. She also explored a lot of very sexual themes and themes regarding like sadness for war, which was something that was unheard of during that time period. Next slide, please. So these are some poems from Yosano Akiko. Her poems don't have any titles, so I'm just going to read them to you in Japanese and in English. その子はたち、串に流るる、来る神のおごりの春の美しきかな。That girl, now 20, as seen in the black hair that flows smoothly through her comb, she is the arrogant spring and so beautiful. Next slide, please. bayuri saku ogusa ga naka ni 木に待ってば野津へ乗りて虹現れる I wait for you in the grassland where small lilies bloom. On the corners of the field, the rainbow shows up. And that is all I have for you guys today. Happy New Year.
Thank you, Daisha. And once again, thank you to the Japanese 212 class with their haiku and tanka. Next up, we have Dr. Amai Brandel, who is going to be introducing the Japanese New Year traditions.
Okay. All right, sorry, I was muted. So, I'd like to share with everybody some of the Japanese New Year's traditions today. Next slide, please. So, there are a lot of things that we do before the New Year's, but I will start from the New Year's Eve so that this presentation will not be too long. So what do people do on New Year's Eve? Next slide, please. Well, this is very common. A lot of people do this. They eat toshikoshi soba, the noodles, like year-end noodles to welcome the New Year's. So soba noodles are supposed to be very, very healthy compared to udon noodles. I know that a lot of people love udon noodles, but soba noodles are actually healthier, less calorie and more nutritious, actually. So it's supposed to be a good luck food. So people used to eat at the change of the seasons and also at the end of the year. And also soba noodles are long and very thin and long. So it's eaten for longevity too. Right, next, please. And after they eat soba noodles, they usually go out to one of the temples nearby to ring the bell. So the people ring, or the temples ring 108 times the bell because the people have 108 sins in themselves. So each bell will get rid of the sin, one sin in we have in our bodies, basically. So of course, one person does not ring like 108, but just hit the bell for once. And so total, there will be 108 in each temples. So I remember when I was a child, I was visiting my uncle's house, and my uncle was living with my grandparents. So I don't think my grandparents went, but my uncles and aunts and my parents, and we all went to the nearby temple to ring the bell. And you see the wooden log there to hit the bell. It's really, really heavy. So I was still a little child, so my uncle had to help me. I think he may have even like held me so that I can reach there. So, but it's kind of fun activity for kids. Next slide, please. So after we welcome the new year, right? So what do we do on New Year's? Well, so after the ringing or hitting of the bell, and we go home, and we usually stay up until the new year comes, right, at midnight. And if you're old enough, okay, so when I was a little child, I went to bed earlier, but you know, if I could stay up, I did. That was the only day I could stay up late, right, as a child. And we actually sit down on the floor and did formal greeting. So we said, 明けましておめでとうございます。今年もよろしくお願いいたします。So that means Happy New Year, and よろしくお願いします is such a difficult sentence to translate into English, but I usually translate it as like, let's have a good relationship, but please be nice to me, or please take care of me. So that's the phrase we'd say. And I forgot to mention this, but Japanese people in Japan, we do not celebrate Lunar New Year anymore. So when Japan opened the country and went through the westernization, we adopted the Western calendar. So it was until like 1875 or something like that. So I'm sharing these traditions now that these are now celebrated on January 1st, right? So the same as your calendar, same as your New Year. So on the first day of the new year, or maybe the first 3 days. So the first 3 days are usually considered New Year's in Japan. So you get days off from work for 3 days, and the New Year's, the January 1st, most of the stores are not open. These days, a lot more stores are open, but it used to be like no stores are open. So people actually went to a shrine or temple, but shrine is way more common, right? Much more common, popular destination for Hatsumode. So this is the first visit to shrine. Next slide, please. And this is how people pray at the shrine. All right, so they put money in there and pray for the happiness and good health for the new year. And next slide, please. Okay, so this is Hatsuhinode, the first sunset of the year. And this is also pretty common, and it's a great experience, right? If it's sunny and and in winter it tends to be like the air is clear, so you can see the Mount Fuji, for example, very clearly. And I'm from Tokyo, but actually from where my parents live, my mother lives, we can actually see the Mount Fuji in the distance, and in winter it's very, very clear. And if you can see the sunset, coming out from Mount Fuji, it's supposed to be the most auspicious, really good luck, right? So people do that sometimes. A lot of people do that, but I think Hatsumode, the visit to the shrine, is very more common than Hatsuhinode, because you have to get up early. All right, next slide, please. And these are, I'm going to introduce some of the decorations for New Year's, and these are very, very common to see, especially in businesses these days. So these are kadomatsu, and those are placed both sides of the gates or the entrance or the doors. Like in old style houses, they put the kadomatsu on the both sides of the doors, entrance area. This signals basically, so the New Year's is basically to welcome the year god called Toshigami, so that the Toshigami, the god, will bring the happiness and good health to the house, to the family. So this shows, this signals that here's the gate, here's the entrance, here's the door to our house, so please come this way, right? So this is the signal to the year god. Next slide, please. And these are also very common decorations, and we usually hang it on the door, outside of our door to the house. And this also signals the god. So this means the God is here. Okay, so it's supposed to be very good luck. Right? And I actually do have one here. I am Christian, but I do follow some of the cultural traditions. Okay, so this is based on Shinto, the Japanese religion. All right, next slide, please. So this is kagami mochi. These are round mochi. Mochi is a sticky rice cakes. And this is an offering to the year god. Okay, so this is very common too. My family didn't have these usually, but my uncles, they always had this, right? So this is the offering. Looks like the offering to God, right? All right, and next, please. All right, so this is a special food that we eat for New Year's, and I know in China they have special food too. And I was kind of counting on Dr. Chan to talk about some of the food, explain she used to years ago, but she didn't do it, and because there's so many, right? So I'm gonna skip that too. But each food has a meaning usually for eating, like longevity or prosperity or good luck or things like that. All right, and next, please. And this is another New Year's food that we eat in Japan, and it's called ozoni. It's a soup with rice cake. So rice cake, the mochi rice cake is the only required ingredients in here, and you can have anything else in other, with the mochi. But the top one is the kanto, the Eastern Japan's style in clear broth, and bottom one is the miso soup, the Western style, but both are very, very delicious. All right, next, please. And this is otoso, the sake that we drink for New Year's, and it's supposed to bring good health and good luck again. Next, please. And here's the New Year's greeting card. So that's very common too, but these days people are moving more digital, so I think they're sending less and less nengajo. All right, but just wanted to give you an example of these. And next, please. And here's otoshidama, the New Year's monies. Just like Dr. Chan showed the red, envelope. We don't use the red envelope, but some envelopes like these. It says noshi in there, and it's a money that the parents and grandparents give to their child or grandchildren or aunts and uncles. They also give money to the kids, to the nephews and nieces. All right, next, please. And here's a kakizome, the first calligraphy of the year, and usually done in schools. So this is a school gym. So the kids are on the floor because the paper is so big, it doesn't fit the desks. And I remember doing that in school too. Okay, next. And here's a game, Hyakunin issue, that literally means 100% one poem. So there are 100 poems in there. And earlier, Jason's Motori Norinaga, so there are some discussions about Motori Norinaga, but that is in this Hyakunin issue. And also Joseph's Ono no Komachi, the first poem I said, I put the comments, that's very, very famous. It is also in Hyakunin issue. That's why it's very, very famous. So Hyakunin issue, I remember as a middle school student, I had a homework over the summer vacation, because summer vacation is in the middle of the school year in Japan. So we had to memorize the 50 poems, the first 50 poems of Hyakunin issue. And that's how I remembered both Motori Norinaga's and Ono no Komachi's poems. So every time I hear it, I was like, oh yeah, I remember this song, this poem. I feel so nostalgic. All right, next, please. So here's a game called Hanetsuki. This is particularly for New Year's, and it's almost like badminton, but the racket is wooden, so it's really hard to hit. So if you miss it and the bird goes down, then you lose, and the other person can actually, as a penalty for losing, the other person can write or draw anything on your face with the sumi ink for calligraphy. so that's the tradition. All right, and I think there's one more. About game, yes. This is also a New Year's tradition, kite flying, right? So there are a lot of games and food, right, and things associated with the New Year's. New Year's is very big in Japan. It's almost like Christmas here, right? So it's for families getting together. So I would say New Year's is the biggest event, biggest cultural event in Japan. So Happy New Year, everyone! It's a little bit later for Japanese, but well, old. Lunar New Year, or we say Old New Year. Right? So we used to celebrate it in Japan too. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Anai Sensei. Next up, I will be passing the mic over to Shay so that she can do some introductions.
Thank you. If you guys aren't hungry yet, our first presenter in Chinese 312 and 330 is Stephen, and he will be providing us with Chinese, Japanese, and Korean cooking demonstrations.
Hi guys. So I'm aware that everybody's really hungry, and sadly, since we can't celebrate the New Year in person, I thought I would show how to make the food so you can try to do it yourself while you're at home or in some type of living situation where you can cook it. You can go ahead and switch to the next slide. So today I set up to present for making jiaozi, which is pot stickers or pan-fried dumplings. Baozi, which is often called like dim sum. Those are the dim sum style dumplings, and they're steamed filled dumplings. Then I was going to make ramen and onigiri, which are noodles, and ramen's a pretty famous one. And then onigiri is a rice ball that often has some form of filling, and effectively what I've heard it referred to as a sandwich or a donut in Japan. So I meant to get to Korea. I felt really bad about missing out on it. I ran out of time, and I also didn't have anything solid, and I probably should have contacted Dr. Sunny Jeong about that, or other Korean learned students that I know. But that being said, I would still say that looking into making Korean food and getting, interested in Korean culture is a good thing to go and try and do for yourself. I've also heard that it's really good food, specifically famously for barbecue. But I'm sure that there are a few Korean students who could probably vouch for me. So the first one is jiaozi. The first step is to get a mixture of water and flour, preferably 3 cups of flour to 1 cup of water, and then just keep kneading it until it's scraggly. After that, you just knead and roll the dough until all the scrappy bits are picked up and form that into a ball. The picture should be a video, I would hope. Oh no, did it not do it? I made all of it. Oh no. If all else fails, I can try to explain what I did. So effectively, I took the palm of my hand and just kept kneading the dough and rolling it into a ball like shape until it eventually wound up becoming a well kneaded round ball of dough. Hey, there we go. 谢谢你. Thank you. After that, you take the dough and put it into some type of round container, preferably a bowl. And you cover it with a damp, not wet though, just a, ram water over it. What is the word? Not rinsed out, but just kind of like wrung out paper towel, and you put it over that, and then you put plastic wrap over that to keep the kind of like to seal it and keep it a little airtight. You'll want to let it sit for about 20 minutes. After that, you want to make sure that you're getting your greens prepped. So during that time period of letting that dough sit, you'll want to take cabbage, green onions, and some other greens, and then probably pull out your meat and any other possible smaller additions that you might have for your pot stickers. So making sure to wash your greens is important. Never forget to do that when you're cooking. After that, you'll want to go ahead and start taking all your greens and chopping them up, and make sure to be careful about, not cutting your finger. And do the best you can to get nice fine cuts. After that, you want to take take the cabbage that you chopped up, put it into a bowl, and throw some salt on it. I know it seems weird, because you're probably like, why are you salting the cabbage? Well, it's because the cabbage is filled with water, and you want to try to get that water out. Salt pulls the water out, and you'll be dealing with that later. You just want to make sure that you get that out, because it can ruin your dumplings if you don't do that. Once you've done that, just set it aside for 7 to 10 minutes. After that, marinate your meat in whatever you want, or don't. That's your choice. But just make sure to have your meat ready to go, marinate it, get it to a reasonable temperature, and use whatever you want to flavor the meat. While you let that sit, if you haven't let it sit yet, if you've thrown in whatever marination that you have, just take the cabbage, drain it out, make sure that you put it either into another bowl or into the sink directly. I just preference the bowl in case you lose any cabbage. We can go ahead and move to the next slide. After that, take the ingredients, mix them. So you'll take sesame oil, soy sauce, any of your greens that you wanted, any possible smaller additions. So I used some cooking, the requirement that I had was cooking wine, sesame oil, soy sauce, and greens of choice. So in the video, I add all of that into this bowl. There was, I think, green onion, ginger, some pepper, and the cabbage, and we just take all that and mix it together. After that, you take the dough, you roll it out into a, well, for lack of a better term, snake. And after you do that, it should be about a 1 1/4 inch thick in diameter rolled out line of dough. You just take that and you make some marks prepared for evenly distributed cutting. So then you want to take that, and after you've cut out the evenly sized slices of dough, you roll it out into small, as best as you can, circles. Obviously, I'm not good at this. But you take those and you put the filling in it. And I tried to replicate a style that I had seen. The ones that I made after the fact were a lot better. These ones just looked like really long forms of the dumplings that normally would be made at the Lunar New Year. So they're just like really long versions of it. And there it is, hopefully. An important thing to do whenever you're sealing these is to make sure that there's no holes on the edging of the dumpling so that it cooks properly. After that, you want to prep the stove. You'll get a pan or skillet or wok or whatever you might have available and get a thin layer of oil on it. You want to set the heat to medium and then slide the dumplings around for a moment before letting them sit so that the bottoms are flat, and that way they can cook properly. Let them cook in the oil until the bottoms are browned. After that, get a little bit of water. So once the bottoms have browned, you want to take some water and very carefully and very slowly add in about 1/4 cup of water and then put a lid on it so that they can steam for 2 to 3 minutes. And once you're done with that, they should be ready to eat. After that, it's going to be the baozi. So baozi is steamed dumplings, and they are going to roughly be the same process of getting up to the point of cooking the pot stickers. So you'll just take all the same steps and then move into this set of instructions. So you'll want to have some type of cooking apparatus, because if you don't have a steamer of some sort, it's probably not going to work very well to try to make steamed dumplings. So in my case, I used a stacked steamer, which worked pretty well. So you'll want to fill the dumpling. I sadly do not have the skill nor expertise of Dr. Yu, who is very famous for knowing how to do this dumpling, but I tried to crimp the edges into an X pattern, and then you just want to kind of move them inward towards each other over and over again. So if you can make like an asterisk of pinches on corners and then push them towards each other, it got the effect that I think would be best replicated, instead of, doing what I did, where if all else fails, just twist the top. It works. So you take them and try to get them as snug without touching into the steamer. Otherwise, they'll start hugging each other. And by that, I mean they just stick to each other and don't want to let go. It's a dumpling hug. You don't want to interrupt a dumpling hug. Once you've done that, just take a moment. I probably left the video up there and forgot to take it down, but that's my fault. So just rest for about 15 minutes while those steam, and then once the 15 minutes are up, take about 5 or so where they just sit and wait. And then once you're done, you can feel free to enjoy some. After that, I made ramen. So you take 1 part of kansui, which is known as lye water, or some baked baking soda, 1 part of water, and 3 parts flour, which should roughly equate to about, I want to say, enough dough to make at least 1 pot, maybe 1.5. So you'll want to take the dough, round it off after you've done effectively the same thing that you did for the dumplings. Just get all of it gathered together and formed into a ball. And then you just let that rest for about 30 minutes. Once it's sat, you want to roll that dough out until it's extremely thin, or at least as thin as you can get it without it being too malleable. And then you want to take it and cut it into long, thin noodles. If you can and you have access to it, you can use a pasta maker and set it to something like a spaghetti setting, and that will get you a much better effect than what I had, because I started off and my cuts were very, very thick. So once they're all ready to go, you just take them and you toss them into some boiling water and transfer it to a broth of your choosing. So looking into some specifically Japanese styled broths, like I think there's you could look into miso, you could look into some soy sauce styled broths. I think there's a tonkatsu broth. There's a variety of them, but there's a lot of opportunities. And then finally onigiri, which it's just rice balls, but you'll want to start off by getting some noriaki seaweed, which is often the seaweed that you see on the outside of a onigiri. So you'll take that and you'll cut it into the desired shape. You can cut it into evenly cut, thick, like rectangular shapes, or you can do what I did and make them extremely long. So you'll want to take the rice that you can find. It's normally some type of sushi rice that can be called fancy rice from time to time. It's very short grained. It's much smaller than your stereotypical jasmine rice or any other form of like white rice. You'll get that into some boiling water, toss the rice in, and then once it goes in there, just turn it to the lowest possible setting and let it cook for 20 minutes. And then take the rice off the heat and let it sit for an extra 5. So you get some plastic wrap, you get a handful of rice, and then you just shape it. And the shaping part is the difficult part, because if you don't know how shapes work, your hands are going to be very difficult. But normally with some time and some practice, you'll get it and it'll form into nice looking triangles, circles, and the rare occasion squares, but there are some really good ones. There have been some cylindrical onigiri, which I found interesting because it's like a stand-up form of sushi. And they're really fun to make. So thank you for going through all this. I really wish I could have found time for the Korean because it did kind of bum me out that I didn't get to it. But it's incredible culture, incredible food, still one that I thoroughly want to get to know. And I appreciate you guys for watching this and learning as much as you can from it. So, ありがとうございます。谢谢。新年快乐 and 頑張ってください。
Stephen, I think I can speak for everyone. I say that everyone loved your presentation and all are super hungry. Our next presentation is from Zach. He is unable to make it, but he recorded himself twice, 2 different Chinese pieces playing the piano.
We can't hear it.
Can you guys hear it now? Are you guys able to hear it now still?
Nope.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Thank you, Zachary. Next up, we have Shay Gorin, who will be giving us a paper cutting introduction.
Hello, so I'm going to talk about Chinese paper cutting. Next slide. First, I'm going to give a brief history. Paper was made by Cai Lun in 105 AD. He used tree bark, hemp, and other materials to create his paper, and it actually happened when he was in a new job manufacturing tools and weapons. And the 6th century is where the oldest surviving paper cutout, which happened to be a symmetric circle, was found. But people think that the art form had been existing prior to that. In the 7th century is when the paper making business became more mainstream and became a huge part of Chinese holidays, using it as decorative art. Before then, and less paper was used for writing purposes. Only the upper class had access to it. In the 14th century, that's when paper began to spread around the world, and that's also when China moved on to other art forms other than paper making. And then in the 1980s, the Republic of China tried to revive this art form, which gave the opportunity to people to create careers out of paper cutting. Next slide. All right, there are 2 ways that you can cut paper. One is with scissors and another is with a knife. And how you cut it and with what tool is based on the paper cutter's preference and skill level. For scissors, you just carefully cut the design, many layers into the paper, and then those would be clipped together. And then with a knife, something I thought was really cool is that, well, they cut it, but they rest it on animal fat and ashes, and then they cut it in a vertical position repeatedly into a pattern of their choosing, and they do not stop during this process. And then this technique can allow highly skilled artists to create several paper cutouts, making this technique makes it more efficient. And then using a knife, surprisingly, is more accurate than scissors. Next slide. All right, where is this used? This can be used in all parts of the traditional home, whether that's walls, windows, doors, mirrors, lamps, and lanterns. It is commonly found outside of the entrance of the home, and certain characters can be used to symbolize happiness and luck. For example, Shuangxi, which is next to the 3rd bullet point, that symbolizes double happiness and good luck. And then another one that isn't shown is Fu. Paper making or cutting can be used as gifts and also to embellish gifts. In addition, the patterns used in paper making can be used in embroidery and other work. And then it's commonly seen during the New Year and at weddings. Next slide. Something that I found that was super interesting is that many places in China are famous for their featured paper cutting. For example, the Shaanxi province stresses the simplicity of cutting, and then in Hebei province and Shaanxi, they are known for dyeing their paper, and then their famous pattern of opera characters. And then another example is in Jiangsu province. The hidden refinement under the skin, deep roughness, is also famous. And then finally in Guangdong province, the highly ornamental function for its various colors and pattern, as well as the fine workmanship, is known there. And the next slide. I just found a website. There's a lot that show different instructions that are step by step that can help people who aren't like familiar with paper cutting create cool designs. Next slide. And then my last two slides include some designs that I thought were really cool. The one in the top on the right, I believe, is with scissors. I'm not sure what was used for the other two, but I thought they were really cool. And the next slide. The one on the top left, I don't know, I thought that was really amazing, and I wanted to include it in my presentation. And that's all. All right, next we have Brianna, and she is going to be reading us a poem called New Year's Day.
Hi, I'm going to be reading Yuan Ru by Wang Anshi, New Year's Day. Next slide, please. 报日盛装一岁去. The new year is coming amid the sound of firecracker. Next slide, please. 春风送远入屠苏. The spring breeze has wafted the warm breath with Tusu wine. Next slide, please. 千门万户通通日. While the rising sun shines thousands of houses. Next slide, please. 荣把仙桃换旧符. New peachwood charms replace the old ones. Just a little background on some of the references in the poem. Tusu wine was a medical liquor from like the olden times that was infused with Chinese herbs and then placed in a thatched cottage that was decorated with an herb called Tusu, which is where it gets its name. And its function was driving out the chill and protecting from plague and epidemic. Peach wood charms were images of the gods or their names hanging on the gate to ward off evil. And the poem was written by a famous reformer who wrote the poem to try to reflect newly implemented policies. His belief was that these new policies would take the place of the old. So it's not just about like the new year, but also like bringing in a new age. And that's all.
Thank you, Brianna. Next, we have Fatu and Alexis. They recorded a reading of New Year's Day for the Farmer family.
Tianjia Yuan Ri, New Year's Day for the Farmer Family by Meng Haoren. 昨夜的回北，今朝随启动. The old year passed with the handle of the Big Dipper turning toward east yesterday, and today is a new start. 我念起强壮，无路上有农. Though I am not an official, even in my 40s, I still worry about farming. 3年久耕夫和出随牧童. Work as a farmer in the field of mulberries, tree, along with Buffalo Boy. 天家占其后宫守四丰年. People divine by zodiac that it will be a bumper harvest this year.
Thank you, guys. All right, and then I'm gonna introduce our Japanese tutors. Rachel and Peyton will be talking about a poem called To Live. Oh wait, actually, next is a presentation by Kimmy.
Kimmy's song.
Once the presentation's up, she'll be singing.
Sorry, I'm supposed to share it, but I'm not able to get access. So if someone could give me access.
I am not sure how to give you access. I can try playing it from my computer if you would like.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You're okay. Give me 1 second to pull it up. Oh, wait.
Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, your PowerPoint is on the screen.
Thank you, Kimmy. All right, next we have our Japanese tutors, Rachel and Pin, who will be doing a poetry reading on a piece called To Live.
Can you see my thingy?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
You guys hear me? Hope. Happy Lunar New Year. Peyton and I will be reading Ikiru, To Live, by Shuntaro Tanikawa. Shuntaro is a very famous poet in Japan and abroad. He's one of the most renowned living poets to date, and lots of people speculate he'll win the Nobel Prize in Literature at some point in his lifetime. He's written over 60 books of poetry, and he's translated Peanuts and the Mother Goose rhymes into Japanese. All right, next slide, please. 生きているということ、今生きているということ、それは喉が渇くということ、木漏れ日が眩しいということ、ふっとあるメロディーを思い出すということ、くしゃみすること、あなたと手をつなぐこと。
生きているということ、今生きているということ、それはミニスカート、 それはプラネタリウム。それはヨハン・シュトラウス。それはピカソ。それはアルプス。すべての美しいものに出会うということ。そして隠された悪を注意深く拒むこと。
生きているということ。今生きているということ。泣けるということ。笑えるということ。怒れるということ。自由ということ。
生きているということ。今生きているということ。今遠くで犬が吠えるということ。今地球が回っているということ。今どこかで産声が上がるということ。今どこかで兵士が傷つくということ。今ブランコが揺れているということ。今が過ぎてゆくこと。
生きているということ。今生きているということ。鳥は羽ばたくということ。海はとろろくということ。カタツムリは這うということ。人は愛するということ。あなたの手のぬくみ、命ということ。Thank you guys.
Thank you both so much. Next, our first East Asian Studies senior that will be presenting is Holly, and she will be talking about the best memories of Japan and South Korea.
One moment, Holly is coming.
Hey, this is Holly. Can you share me on Courtney's screen, please?
Yes, give me one moment.
Sorry, my microphone took that moment to decide it didn't want to work anymore. All right, well, while you're pulling it up, I'll go ahead and start. So, hello, everybody. My name is Holly Hilty. Some of you have probably already figured out I have been helping MC. So, I had the amazing opportunity of being able to study abroad in Japan and South Korea. So, I studied abroad in Japan during the spring semester of 2019 at Kansai Gaidai University in Hirakata, Japan, which is down in Osaka. And then I got to study at Seoul, South Korea at Ewha Women's University from the fall of 2019 to the spring of 2020. So next slide. What is wrong with the computer? All right.
So I absolutely loved both of these experiences, and I had so many amazing memories to share about them, but I had to choose only my most favorite. And so I, chose like some of my big bucket list opportunities that I got to experience with you guys. So the best part about both of these experiences was that I had the opportunity to make so many amazing friends that I still talk to this day, even if I only met them briefly. Next slide. So my favorite memory from Japan was a school-led trip to Ise Mie. On this trip, we went to 3 different locations. The first location was Ise Jingu, or Ise Shrine, and we got to walk through both the Naiku and the Gekku, which are the inner shrine and the outer shrine. And we weren't really able to take a whole lot of pictures on the inside of it out of respect for the people praying. But so there are a bunch of pictures of the outside, and one of them was the sake barrels that are there. And then also on this screen, you should see the Kagura Den, which is the golden white buildings. And this is a special prayer hall, but right now it's just functioning as a place for people to get calligraphy prayers signed into a pilgrimage book. So next we went to Oharai Machi. It's a traditional village that's connected to this shrine. And this village has a famous road called Okage Yokocho. And on this road, you can find an udon that they're famous for because the broth is thicker than typical. Next slide. So what we also got to experience during this trip was we got to see a taiko drum performance. And this was really cool. And I actually didn't take these pictures. A friend took them. There were so many people there that it was hard to get close. So one of our friends got up really close and got pictures and sent them to all of us. So it was a really amazing experience. And if you have time, I definitely recommend watching a video of that perform. So next slide. So next we went to the aquarium, and I loved this because it was my first time ever getting to go to one in Japan. So I got lots of pictures of fish. I have spared you of looking at all of them, but I just shared a couple of my favorite things that we got to see. Also, I didn't have a picture of it, but one of our friends got to go up on stage and interact with a seal, and the funniest part about that was that he got slapped by it. And so it was very funny to watch, but he was fine. So next slide. So connected to the aquarium is a walkway to the shrine Meotoiwa. This was one of my favorite sites that I visited when I was there. It was just absolutely beautiful, and it was very, it was starting to get cloudy and rainy, but it was still one of those things that you just never forget whenever you go and see it. And then Meotoiwa, this shrine is the husband and wife shrine, and so it talks about like who supports who and represents that. It was also surrounded by a bunch of frog statues, which I didn't picture, but it was very funny to walk around and see so many frog statues. All right, next slide. So my next study abroad experience was in Seoul, South Korea. And in Seoul, I got to see so many different places, as well as outside of the city, we got to go to a couple different festivals that were really amazing. But one of my big bucket list things that I wanted to do while I was in South Korea was go to Busan, particularly the Gamcheon Culture Village, which I'll talk about in a second. So this is why I decided to share this trip. Also, Courtney, who is going to present next, got to join me on this trip because it was during winter break. So you'll see some pictures of her and I together. So next slide. So the first place we went to in Busan was the Gamcheon Culture Village. So this is a seaside town that is famous for beautiful art throughout the streets. And it was so like perfectly integrated into everything that you would turn a corner and you wouldn't expect to see anything, but it would be there. So like the staircase that I'm sitting on with all the houses on it, we just happened upon that. And that like some of those pictures turned out to be like my favorite that I got while I was in Korea. Next slide. So the next place we visited was the seaside temple called Haedong Yeongung Temple. It was one of the oldest temples in South Korea, as well as it was a seaside one, which is very amazing, and it was beautiful. So this temple is particularly significant for this presentation because a lot of South Korean people will go there to pray during the New Year's, as there's a lot of different Buddhas that they can pray to for like good wishings throughout the new year. So at the entrance of this temple, there are 12 zodiac stone statues, and I got a picture with the tiger because that's my year, as well as it's our school mascot, so it just seemed a little too perfect. So as you enter into the temple, you have to climb 108 stone steps, and also the undersides of the temples, not even just in this particular temple, but everywhere, like even some of the castles have amazing undersides to the roofings, and like the artwork and craftsmanship is amazing. So one of my favorite things to do was to take pictures of the underside of it, so you can see that in there with all the different details and stuff like that. It was one of my favorite things. Next slide. So inside the temple, there was so many different relics and statues that you could pray to, like I mentioned before. And one of the things that I made sure I prayed to was the Buddha of academic achievement, which you can see there. I made sure that, you know, we got to that one. And so also throughout the temple, there were numerous Buddha statues, and both large and tiny, and these were representative of the disciples that used to study there. And then the last statue is, there was more, but the last significant one was the Jijang Bosal statue, which is the golden Buddha that you can see. And this is one of the identifiers for this particular temple. So the next slide, please. So during our stay here, we got to stay at an Airbnb with a wonderful host, and she actually showed us around to a couple different sites and hung out with us through the day. So Courtney's in the picture with her there. I couldn't find the picture with all three of us, but you get to see Courtney and her in that. And so one of the things that we got to do was ride this rail car over top of the sea and go to a hiking spot. And from the hiking spot, you could see all these ships, and like also the little like jack looking things that are sitting in the ocean were like, we searched them, and they were war barricades back from during that time. But now they transformed into art. And that was one of the cool things about Korea, was that everything was transformed into art. And so the next slide. So our Airbnb host, she took us to a 5-star hotel that was her favorite to go to, and it had an amazing cafe inside. And then she took us up to the balcony, and we got to look out at the horizon, or the skyline, the city line in Korea, and it was beautiful, and we got so many amazing pictures. And that's one of the things that every time I think back to Korea, I remember that moment with all the pretty lights and everything. So yeah. All right, and last slide. So these were just a couple pictures that I wanted to include in there because they weren't necessarily relevant to the presentation, but I thought they were fun memories. So thank you so much for listening. And next up is Courtney. Yeah.
Okay, well, hello, I'm Courtney. I am also a senior and Holly's roommate. I studied abroad in Osaka, Japan at Kansai Gaidai, the same university Holly was at, but I was there from fall 2019 all the way to spring 2020, even during COVID. You can go to the next slide. I decided when I was there that I did not want to do homestay, so I lived in a dorm, but I was offered a program to have a home visit family. So those pictures are with my brother and my sister who were both in high school, and then my still younger sister, but we were both in university together, and then my mom in the back. I would go and visit them on the weekends. They lived in Wakayama, which was maybe like a 3-hour train ride. But every weekend we would do something new. I got to go to my younger siblings' sports festival, which was really cool. I also went up Mount Koya. Had my first experience eating sushi in Japan with them, and went to a Sento, and it was really great because I got the outside experience of living within a home and experiencing it. Next slide, please. And then when I wasn't with my family, I was living in my dorm with all my friends. We would always do food parties any weekend or even in the evening. So we had French toast parties or any Halloween, we even had a Cinco de Mayo party, just any excuse to eat and have fun together all the time. And it was just a really good time. So it was great. And it's a mixture of international students and Japanese. So we would speak both English and Japanese and help each other with our homework. Okay, next slide. So because where I was located, I would go to Kyoto all the time. And we would even go, these are some of the pictures I took. We would even go just to have some parfaits because we wanted some matcha, or we wanted to just walk around or even go shopping just for the food. So it was just that casual everyday trip we would make, and it was probably one of my favorite places I visited, just because there's so many places and it was so much fun no matter where you went. Okay, next slide. One of my other favorite trips I went on was for one of my friend's birthdays, was around Christmas time, so we went and spent the weekend in Kobe, and they had Christmas lights, so that's a picture of all of us. We went and we saw the whole Christmas lights and everything they had. We went and out to dinner, and then the next day we decided to go to a botanical gardens, and there's a waterfall, so you have group picture of the waterfall, and they had lavender ice cream, which I had never had before, and it was amazing. It was so good. So there's my nice aesthetic photo of me holding my ice in front of flowers. Okay, next slide. And then probably one of my favorite trips in last minute trips was going to Ishigaki, Okinawa, which is a smaller island off of Okinawa. It wasn't very much of a tourist destination at all, but it was super awesome. There were no trains. There's just one bus that went through the town. And so we would rent bikes from our hostel we were staying at. No one really spoke English, so definitely was the time to use all my Japanese language, but definitely was a super great place. We would always just see random goats. I don't know why, but there's pictures of some goats on some jet skis that we passed when we were biking. I also went snorkeling, so that is a picture of a turtle I saw. We also saw manta rays. Of course, I had to throw in a food picture. And then we also took a ferry to a smaller island, went swimming there, so that is the other picture of that small island. I believe that is my whole presentation. Yes.
Thank you so much, Courtney, for sharing your experience. Lastly, we have Rachel Roya, and she's going to talk about her experience abroad in Japan.
Hey guys, mine will definitely not be as long because I was abroad in 2020 spring, and I was at Nanzan University, so they sent us home when COVID was first starting to get bad. But I had about 2 good months there and a lot of great memories that I would like to share with you guys today. If you could go to the next slide. This was the final day of class when we all took a class picture. We all knew we were leaving in the next week, but this was our last in-person class. And it was really nice to just kind of have everybody together in one place and just be really excited, even though we were all really sad. Like it was just like our last kind of party and get to know and exchange numbers and stuff before everybody went off to go home. Next slide. Another one, that same night of the weekend, there was typically parties at the local dorm for the guys, and everybody went to just have one last hurrah with everybody together. And this is one of the pictures they took at the end of the night with almost all of the study abroad students there. Next slide. One of my favorite things about studying abroad was definitely the food. I've always loved Japanese food, but seeing and getting to taste like actual Japanese food in Japan was one of my favorite things. I've always loved eel, so I told my host family, and they took me out. This was my final meal before I had to leave. It's unagi on top of rice, and there's a soup broth in the black container. So you put some rice in the unagi in the bowl, add some broth, and it makes it kind of like a soup. It was absolutely delicious and well worth the money. Next slide, please. While I was studying abroad, my host family tries to give their students a chance to explore. So they took me and a couple friends to Nara to go see the temples and just kind of have our own time to explore and just see what we wanted to see. This is one of the temples that we went up and just kind of walked around. It was absolutely gorgeous. Next slide, please. Still in Nara, they're very well known for their deer. If you buy the rice crackers, they will bow to you, but they also bite your legs, bite your hands. Definitely, maybe not worth it, but it was kind of a fun experience. Next slide, please. Same trip, but before we were at Nara, we took a quick side trip. I forget where this was. I wish I remembered, but it's definitely a place that was connected to the emperor. I think, I forget how. Gosh, I wish I could remember. But that's my host father kind of standing off to the side. He was never great at taking pictures. But it was so sweet of them to take us all and just like show us around what they knew. Next slide, please. This is a video if you can get it to play. I don't know if it'll work. Yes. So this is like the third part of the series, but we went to an owl cafe that was in Nara while we waited, and it was less of a cafe and more of you could just see the cool animals. And here was a good luck charm. So basically you shuffle them around and put them in front of the owl, and the owl picks it for you. And you get to open it up and see if you have good luck, average luck, and like kind of what it says. I don't know if it's actually playing. I can't see it online. But it was really cool to just have this giant owl. I've always loved birds right in front of me, and I could jingle the little like, yeah, there we go. The little paper around and just have him like grab one and had to get it from his mouth. It was such a crazy cool experience. It was like $10. It was like 1,000 yen. So it was totally worth it. And I'm really glad I got to do it because we were planning on going to an animal cafe in Tokyo, but we never had the chance to having got home. And you can see I wasn't shaking it fast enough, so I had to like move it closer and shake it. I ended up getting very good luck, and that's the only very good luck I've gotten while I was in Japan through all the temples and shrines that I visited and bought things. All right, this was a local field trip that we did with Nanzan that they put on for us. A whole bunch of groups went. This was my group. This was at one of the local gardens that was really famous and it was gigantic. It was gorgeous. This was right before the cherry blossoms started to bloom, so we didn't get to see those, but we did get to see the water and the trees and just kind of walk through. It was absolutely gorgeous. Next slide, please. Same place. That was one of the groups in the back. My good friend was back there, so we decided to take a group picture even though we were far away. But there were several levels, and it was just really cool to be able to walk around, see the koi fish, all of the scenery, absolutely gorgeous. Next slide, please. One of my absolute favorite memories that I did have the chance to do was I went up to Sapporo with a couple of friends. We rented an Airbnb, and we got to see the snow festival. This is when we had first arrived, and I was absolutely shocked by the amount of snow. I'm native to Ohio, so I'm, fairly well known to snow, but I had never seen this much in my life. And this was like, they hadn't gotten a lot of snow. They were concerned for the snow festival, so I was absolutely shocked. Next slide, please. These are just a couple of photos I compiled because I took my Polaroid around with me. The top left one is me and my good friend. at the Snow Festival, and a couple others are from local shrines and temples that I also got because I was doing it for my Buddhism class. Next slide, please. While we were there, there was a mall, and on the very top floor, there was a whole, I hope you guys can hear me, it says bad network. But on the very top floor, there was a whole ramen, like, alley, where it was like a whole bunch of different kinds of ramen from all around Japan. We ended up going to the one that was for Sapporo. So they are well known for their miso ramen. So I got the like utmost like special one that they had. It was a lot. There's a stick of butter in there if you can see it. Didn't eat the whole thing, but it was absolutely amazing. Next slide, please. This is another video, if you can get us to play. At the Snow Festival, we went to the ice portion, and they had this big slide made out of ice, and I got to slide down it. A couple of my friends did it too. It was really fun. Just a random thing that they had that were like, oh yeah, we're totally gonna do this. Next slide, please. Just a couple pictures while we were at the Snow Festival. They also had a snow portion where there were lots of big sculptures. I added some of the biggest ones I saw. This, I wish I had me for size, but this is like as big as a building tall. And it was just gorgeous. I think there's one more if you can go to the next slide. Yes, this was, I believe it was like the town hall or the mayor's place in Sapporo, and it was almost life-size, maybe a little bit smaller. It was absolutely gigantic, and the details were stunning. The next slide, please. This is another quick video. This was in Nagoya, which is where Nansan was. These are a couple of my friends. They had a plastic ice rink, which is something I had never done before. It was very difficult. Not a fan, but it was kind of fun to just try it out. It was only a couple bucks, and it was in a shopping mall, so we could kind of go around and shop while we were at it. Next slide, please. Another video. This is towards the end of my journey in Japan. We went to do karaoke, and it was all study abroad students. So, you know, we're all singing in Japanese, and we're not necessarily great at it, but it was a lot of fun. A small little room. 10 out of 10. Highly recommend. Next slide, please. And here was my host family. My host mom's not in the picture. She took the picture. But there's my host dad and their daughter and her kids. And I got to see Heather, who was my tutor when I first started here at Wittenberg. So it was really nice to see her and meet up with her and invite her over for dinner because my host parents were so nice to have her come over. Next slide, please. This is a quick little video of when I first went to Atsuta Jingu. This was right when I first got there. I went with Heather, and this was during their celebrations for the new year. So I guess a year ago. It was really cool because I still had all the stands up. We went to go get good luck charms, but the line was way too long and I was already running late to be home. But it was so much fun. And is there another slide, or was that the last of it? Yep, that's the last of it. I absolutely loved my trip. I'm really sad it got cut short. And I plan to go back because I have to go to see Tokyo and I have to go see places that I didn't get the chance to do. Like, I cannot say like strongly enough that everyone should go visit Japan. The culture is amazing. Seeing all of this in person and like getting to experience those things was amazing and really life-changing for me. Thank you guys.
Thank you, Rachel. I loved all the pictures and the videos. That was amazing. Up next was supposed to be Dr. Jiang. Unfortunately, she isn't able to come, and there was a technical issue with the video that she was going to share. But that wraps up our event, and I'd like to, Xin Nian Kuai Le. I'd like to wish everyone a Happy New Year, and thank you for coming and putting all the effort into each of your presentations. Yeah, just thank you.
Thank you, everyone. You guys have done such a good job. Special thanks to Maddie, Shay, Holly, and also like to thank Dr. Olson Moore and also Dr. Imai, and also, you know, our the Solution Center colleagues. They really did a great job for us.
And to everyone.
Too. Thank you.
Thank you, that's it.
Thank you.
ありがとう. Thank you.
新年快乐。
新年快乐。
谢谢。